think. Oh, well, it's pretty dark, but it's not a very windy night, so hopefully you can hear me alright. This is going to be a response to derived energy. I just now noticed that he had posted a response to my last video on March 6th or something like that. So I took some notes, and here goes nothing. Okay, so I was thinking about, well, something that I've been pondering or taking in lately has been the inseparability of opposites. So I'm just going to put that out there and return to that later. My first comment on your video is, I agree with everything that you said about evolution scientifically, and here's the thing about evolution and science: they are tools, because you see they both arise out of language, which is ultimately merely a tool. Okay, so anything that arises out of it has to, by default, therefore be only no more than a tool, no matter what its implications might be to understand that. Okay, so recognizing that or admitting that, which really isn't very difficult to do once you language is not it arose, it emerged, it's part of the happening, but it's not the inevitable description of what is. So if something has a language as a foundation, such as science, or an aspect of science such as evolutionary biology, so what does that mean? Well, you can actually look. I like this theme of as above, so below when pondering these sort of topics. As above, so below. So it's like you can even use an aspect of science to, ponder this concept, and that is the dichotomy, if you will, or the inseparability of opposites, the yin and the yang, within science, of quantum mechanics versus Newtonian mechanics. So, what is the basic descriptive character of these two aspects? Well, I'm a huge fan of Alan Watts. Prickly versus gooey. I mean, within science, quantum mechanics is a kind of a gooey, indistinct concept, but yet it is there. It's not to be ignored. It's undeniable. So then we have to, essentially, by default, without being given the choice, we have to pit Newtonian mechanics, Newtonian dynamics, against quantum, if we are to choose to use science as a tool, which again is based on linguistics ultimately. So if we choose to use that as a tool, we have to accept that we're pitting those two virtual opposites against each other, is what it is. And therefore, what does that take us to? It's like you have to go into that regress. You mentioned something about an infinite regress, and I don't disagree. That's obvious. That's why I made that video at the beginning with the mirrors, even though I didn't show that very effectively. I have some photos on my Flickr, however, that are quite a bit more vivid in regard to that idea. But feedback loop. That's just part of the nature of things that we're dealing with here. So the infinite regress, you dive into thinking, you dive into using the mind as a tool, just like you would dive into within thinking, science as a tool within the tool of thinking. So if you dive into thinking as a tool, you accept that you are going to encounter that infinite regress. You must, implicitly, whether or not you admit it to yourself, and whether or not your explicit denial of this keeps you from admitting it on the surface. You're going to encounter it time and again, because it's part of your implicit acceptance of what you're choosing to do, which is think. Okay? That's what the nature of thinking leads to. And that's what we are, is thinking beings, conscious beings, self-aware beings. Okay, so when I say we have to dive into that regress, the nothingness, no matter what circumstances we're dealing with physically, within the physical realm on this earth as Homo sapiens, there's something within which, or in contrast to which, this stuff is able to be recognized as happening. Do you see what I'm saying? So, we're not dealing with a vacuum. The earth is not in a vacuum. Okay, so whether or not there's life on other planets or other parts of the universe, I mean, that's another discussion, kind of, but how's it going? It doesn't really matter, because we are on this planet within the galaxy that we manifest through. We can't know ourselves but through what we are in contrast to, but through what we are moving through. Okay, so the galaxy is teeming with life because Earth is teeming with life. That is to say that no matter what physical parameters, which you laid out very impeccably in your video, we still have something outside of that that's manifesting this. We don't have to give it a name. I personally do not like the word God. I'm not as adamantly opposed to it as I once was, but it's just laden, and it's just a word, so fuck it, okay? It's like there's something manifesting. We are that as well, just as you cannot recognize light without dark, and this is inevitable. This is kind of loud over here. We have to go into the regress, whether or not we think it's logical, because logic, again, is just a language game. Okay, so the regress is more true than the language. What the picture in your mind of the regress, which is linguistic in nature as well, is attempting to articulate, is closer to the truth than anything we could come up with language, because that's what we come out of. And that's why I say we can't avoid the manifestation of self-awareness. We are proof of that. Birth and death arise together as well. We may not have an escape here, people. But if that's true, if you can find that to be true for yourself, but if it's true, it's true, but perspective-wise, there's multiple true perspectives. That's just the way it happens to be. There's a larger truth, perhaps, but we can never fully penetrate that, just like we can never fully penetrate what is, what everything is coming out of. If you ever thought you did, you'd be deluding yourself, no matter what height your enlightenment happened to be, as a deity or a human or whatever else. So, kind of lost track of my notes. Hi. You get to a point where you realize it's undeniable that self-awareness is part of what is. Part of that is letting go of time, realizing how many things are actually mere tools in our repertoire, whatever the fuck that word is. Time, merely a tool as well, just like so many other things, right? Money, merely a tool. Language, merely a tool. Names, ego, all tools. What is the only thing that's real. So letting go of time means that recognition that everything that truly is a one unfolding present moment, one happening. That means you are always part of what is, because you are here, and what is here, and what is now, and always has been. It sounds like language games, but everything's language games, don't you see? Causality is a mere tool as well. It's a mental fabrication. It's real when you're moving through this environment, but it's not ultimately real. It's not the ultimate reality. It's part of the larger ultimate reality as a tool. If everything arose out of nothing in terms of what we can conceptualize as nothing, then we're that nothing as well, and will continue to arise out of that nothing, and have always been arising out of that nothing, because everything is you know, I don't know. Not a tree hugger, but I mean, perhaps. Tree slapper.